My AirPods, unfortunately, were stolen today, so I'm recording on a different set. It's been a long day, but that doesn't mean I'm not thrilled to share the hottest pieces of news this week. First of which is actually a really interesting paper that I read end to end coming from Meta regarding decoding brain activity and generating images based on decoded brain activity. The problem is that understanding how the human brain represents the world is a major challenge. And this paper builds on previous advancements in using machine learning to understand the representation of the world, but it utilizes generative AI to take a non-class restrictive approach by utilizing visual embeddings or visual features and images and aligning brainwaves to embeddings, which are one of the fundamental building blocks of generative AI. So the idea is you put a bunch of electrodes on someone's head, you capture their brain activity. Unfortunately for this paper, they only captured it every couple of seconds because it was their priority to use a high resolution capturing technique rather than a high temporal frequency technique. Every couple of seconds is pretty slow for this kind of stuff. But you capture brain activity every couple of seconds. You embed that information. You take a pre-trained image model. You take image embeddings. You align that with the brainwaves. You actually show an image to a person and you use those image embeddings once you've aligned them using this process of showing the person images to actually generate an output that's hypothetically what the person is visually processing at a given point in time. For example, people are shown a picture of an animal and this model actually output a picture of an animal, slightly fantastical animal, right? But conceptually, thematically, we're looking at pretty similar stuff, similar types of scenes, similar types of subjects and images. Really interesting. Aligning brainwaves to pre-trained visual embeddings. The impacts of this are, first off, the ability to decode these hyper-complex perceptual representations, that is seeing an image and processing it as a function of time. So being able to understand over time how the processing of an image visually affects our perceptual representation of it will certainly greatly improve our understanding of processes at stake during our own visual processing. So when you look at an image of something, how your visual perception of an image changes over time. You could imagine a similar kind of application being built for text processing. So visualizing text or sound processing, right? Like images is just one modality. You can embed sound, you can embed text, you can embed video even. Seeing the somewhat effective and promising alignment of embeddings from a neural network with brainwaves from the human brain suggests that it's possible that some of the fundamental processes at work inside neural nets inside human brains may share some similarities, right? In that maybe our brains don't operate so much differently from a neural network and we're just taking in all these different modalities of data all the time. Pivoting, I want to talk about a really interesting article about Open Philanthropy, which is a billionaire-backed network of AI advisors that have basically taken over AI advising in Washington, D.C. Open Philanthropy is a Silicon Valley-backed. They fund AI fellows in key governmental and think tank positions to influence AI policy and generally influence it towards long-term risk. We've talked about long-termism before. Long-termism is basically looking way down the road about the existential risks of AI to humanity, like literally AI apocalypse, AI killing us all, AI enslaving us all, etc. This think tank, Open Philanthropy, is steering policy towards long-term risks. The network is facilitated by Horizon Institute for Public Service and has a significant presence in Senate offices, federal departments, multiple crucial committees, and shapes AI regulations and diverts focus from immediate tech firm regulations, which critics argue could be really detrimental because regulation is being shifted towards long-term by Open Philanthropy, basically focused on one slice of the problem, the long-term threats. The short-term threats are very significant as well. They're very much effective altruists. Basically, these kind of apocalyptic AI are like a caricature of the AI that exists right now. We're probably decades away. So to divert political attention right now towards risks that are so far down the line may be unproductive and may steer policymakers away from short-term, really important issues and areas that need regulation. Next up, I want to talk about Anthropic. I talk about one of their recent articles regarding collective constitutional AI, which is aligning a model with public input to abide by a set of high-level normative principles written into quote, constitution. Claude and Claude V2 Anthropic's language models rely on constitutions created by Anthropic employees. And the constitution takes inspiration from plenty of outside sources like the United Nations, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, with the goal to make them more helpful and harmless. In short, goal is to make AI more ethical and more transparent by creating a constitution and training the model to abide by that constitution. Downside is the constitution is created by a small group of people, developers working on the model. So they said, we're going to basically open this up for public input. And then looked into the differences, the similarities and the differences between developers at Anthropic saw as the ideal constitution of train AI by and what people democratically see as important. And I want to show first a couple of examples where public principles are similar to the principles in the Anthropic written constitution. So basically they're given a series of prompts and they can say like, yes, no, the model should do this, the model shouldn't do this. So a public principle that was similar to the principles in the Anthropic written constitution, people generally said that models should choose the response that most respects the human rights to freedom, universal equality, fair treatment, and protection against discrimination. Another public principle is that LLMs should choose the response that least endorse misinformation and that least expand on conspiracies, theories, or violence. Try to endorse truth wherever possible, and also endorse freedom and equality. What I found surprising is a couple of public principles that did not match so closely. So the first one is Anthropic believes that models should do this. The public did not strongly agree so much that LLMs, language models, should choose the response that most provides balanced and objective information that reflects all sides of the situation. I don't want to dive too deep into that here. What I do want to say is that democratization of these kinds of AI constitutions and high-level normative values for AI, there is certainly value to be derived from crowdsourcing and democratizing this, but there's also a place for experts. Last piece of news here, US just expands export restrictions to China from chip manufacturers. Basically, it's just a ban on tailor-made NVIDIA and Intel chips. They're going to go to Beijing. So US put in these trade restrictions a ways back, and then NVIDIA and Intel said, we still want to sell stuff to China, so we're going to develop some new chips that fall within the US regulations, and then the US just expanded. So basically, NVIDIA and Intel have to scrap their chips that they've been developing to sell to Beijing. So Beijing sets that NVIDIA and Intel are set to significant impact to tech giants in China like Tencent, Alibaba. There's certainly going to be some long-term impacts here. Worth mentioning here that this comes similar time with Baidu, releasing their newest generalized language model, Ernie 4.0, potent foundation model, as they call it. But what this enables is if this model is as powerful as claimed and the tech demos make it seem like it's certainly competent, will enable the kinds of features that we're seeing rolled out from Microsoft and Google and Amazon. There's going to be similar rollouts for these enormous tech companies in China that have their own search engines, et cetera. They're developing their own models to use here. China's also has their own chip manufacturers that are focused on enterprise GPUs because they know that this is a problem and they need to not be reliant on the United States if they want to continue to be relevant and leading in the space. It's a major security concern for the United States for a lot of different reasons. Again, I don't want to get too political here, but it is fascinating to see an arms race of sorts. Last tiny piece of news, Stack Overflow is laying off 28% of their workforce, probably because of ChatGPT. She said, it may be seeing the end of an era. To be honest, I envy the computer science graduates of the future. I get to use GPT-4 or GPT-5 or GPT-6 instead of spending 4 years mastering the art of Google Shoe and going deep on Stack Overflow type forums to answer tech questions. So it's sad to see Stack Overflow downsizing, but it means that there are now better tools in place. That's all for this week. If you enjoyed, subscribe. It'll take it easy.